We stand ready to use industrial policy to help shelter British business from the storm and support the most affected sectors. This is what UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer wrote in a column for The Telegraph. His statement came in response to Donald Trump's decision to impose tariffs on imports to the US from more than 180 countries and territories. A growing number of nations are considering countermeasures to protect their own economies. China, Japan, Singapore, Canada, Mexico and the EU have already signaled their intentions. The UK also reacted but emphasized it does not plan to introduce trade restrictions against the US, citing ongoing efforts to finalize a new economic agreement.
This week, the government will do everything necessary to protect Britain's national interest, because when global economic sands are shifting, our laser focus on delivering for Britain will not. And these new times demand a new mentality. We have gone further and faster on national security. Now we must do the same on economic security through strengthened alliances and reducing barriers to trade. Keir Starmer, Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, in the column for The Telegraph.
The introduction of tariffs has also impacted the US economy. Analysts note that current market conditions resemble 2020, when global trade was severely disrupted by the COVID-19 pandemic. However, in Washington, officials believe the impact is temporary. According to US Secretary of State Marco Rubio, markets will stabilize once new supply chains are established.
Businesses around the world, including in trade and global trade, they just need to know what the rules are. Once they know what the rules are, they will adjust to those rules. So I don't think it's fair to say economies are crashing. Markets are crashing because markets are based on the stock value of companies who today are embedded in modes of production that are bad for the United States.
Still, Washington does not plan to wage a trade war indefinitely. Donald Trump previously stated that the tariffs are meant to strengthen America's negotiating positions with other countries. According to his decision, a 20% tariff now applies to EU goods, on top of the existing 25% tariffs on European steel and aluminium. In response, Brussels imposed counter-tariffs on US goods worth 26 billion euros and vowed to consider additional measures. Despite the tension, Elon Musk, head of the US Government Efficiency Department, stated that Washington's long-term goal is tariff-free trade with Europe.
I'm hopeful that there can be a very close relationship with America and Europe. I'm hopeful, for example, with the tariffs, that at the end of the day, I hope it is agreed that both Europe and the United States should move, ideally, in my view, to a zero-tariff situation, effectively creating a free trade zone between Europe and North America.
The first country Trump began talks with on reducing tariffs was Vietnam. Tariffs on Vietnamese imports were among the highest at 46%. On the social platform Truth Social, Trump announced that Washington and Hanoi are working on a trade deal that could eliminate tariffs entirely. In response, Vietnamese officials said they are committed to creating favorable conditions for American businesses.
Regarding bilateral trade ties, the two leaders discussed the means to step up trade cooperation between the two sides, in which General Secretary Tu Lam affirmed that Vietnam stood ready to negotiate with the U.S. to reduce the tariffs on U.S. exports to Vietnam to 0%, and requested the U.S. to do the same for Vietnamese exports to the U.S. General Secretary. Tu Lam also said that Vietnam would continue to import more goods from the U.S. and create more favorable conditions for American companies to further invest in Vietnam, from the Vietnamese government website.
According to CNN, Trump has also discussed tariff reductions with Indian officials. Meanwhile, the South China Morning Post reports, citing sources, that Cambodia and Indonesia are ready to begin similar negotiations with Washington. Reported by Serhiy Kulias, Andriy Dmytrenko, UATV News.
Trump won't fail into the trap of endless negotiations, and the Kremlin won't be able to mislead everyone. Statements by the United States Secretary of State Marco Rubio clearly show that Washington's patience is not limitless. After the NATO Foreign Ministers Summit, Rubio emphasized that Ukraine has shown a willingness to negotiate while Moscow continues to stall, make new demands, and claim that the Trump administration allegedly doesn't consider Russia's interests.
The Russians know our position in terms of wanting to end the war, and we will know very soon if they are serious about pursuing real peace or if this is a delaying tactic. If it is a delaying tactic, Trump is not interested in that. We will know soon enough if Russia is serious about peace. If they are, that will be great. Then we can move towards peace.
For the next round of negotiations with the Americans, Putin sent the head of the Russian investment fund, Kirill Dmitriev. After their meetings, Dmitriev stated in an interview with Fox News that Moscow is open to discussing security guarantees for Kyiv. This sharply contrasts with previous statements by Minister of Foreign Affairs of Russia, Lavrov, who claimed that Kyiv's demand for guarantees, such as presence of Western troops, is unacceptable to Moscow. However, these two key figures of the Kremlin are known to be at odds. Russian opposition media reported that in Riyadh, Lavrov and Dmitriev even had a quarrel over a chair, which surprised the Americans, so it's clear that public statements are now less relevant.
The U.S. is now waiting for Kirill Dmitriev, the Russian negotiator, to report back to President Putin before the two sides move forward with any next steps, according to a person familiar with the talks. American officials have become increasingly frustrated by Moscow's slow walking of negotiations. What appeared to be a breakthrough last week over a partial truce in the Black Sea quickly evaporated after Russian officials said it was contingent on sanctions relief. From Bloomberg Materials.
In Europe, it is believed that Putin's negotiators won't be able to fix the situation. The Kremlin's dictator will continue to claim that he wants peace, but every night hundreds of missiles and drones will continue to strike Ukrainian territory, according to Secretary of State for Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Affairs of the UK, David Lammy. Only a strong position by Ukraine, both military and economically, can stop the aggressor.
Putin continues to obfuscate, continues to drag his feet. He could accept a ceasefire now. He continues to bomb Ukraine, its civilian population, its energy supply. We see you, Vladimir Putin. We know what you're doing.
The Trump administration assures that it will respect Ukraine and Europe's positions in negotiations with Russia. This was shared by the High Representative of the European Union for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy, Kaja Kallas, after a meeting with Marco Rubio. Furthermore, Washington has promised to respect all of Ukraine's red lines. This include, first and foremost, a strong army and non-recognition of occupied territories as Russian.
It was emphasized that nothing regarding Ukraine can happen without Ukraine. And of course, Ukraine and Europe must come to an agreement on all the issues being discussed, because this is all happening in Europe. So yes, he gave us assurances and guarantees on this matter. Kaja Kallas, High Representative of the European Union for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy.
On Monday, Donald Trump announced that he would speak to Putin by phone this week. However, according to the NBC News, several people in his circle are advising against his move. First, the Russian dictator must declare his willingness to completely cease fire in Ukraine, not just say it, but act on it. Only then negotiations continue. Reported by Alexandra Zaslavets, Irina Yusupova, UATV News.